Hi, good evening, everyone. Um, I'm grateful to the previous speaker for introducing ONDC. Thank you so much for introducing. You made my task slightly easier. I think, okay. ONDC is being set up with a very simple mandate. The mandate is how do we step change digital commerce in the country. If you look at how digital commerce is currently stacked up in the country, a very minuscule percentage of retailers are digitally enabled. Our share of digital commerce as an overall piece of the pie is less than 5%. And if you stack it up against other economies around us, that's a very minuscule percentage. And I think the main goal and aim with which ONDC has been set up is to see how in the next 5 years we can take this up to 25%. And that's the biggest challenge which we need to kind of tackle as ONDC. What it has done is that it's been set up to give you more choices, and choices to sellers to decide who you want to work with, how you want to work with, what are the commercial terms which are acceptable to you, what are the commercial terms not acceptable to you. The choices need to be with you as a seller. For ability for merchants to set their own terms and conditions, okay, we've already spoken about that right now. And discoverability. You need to be in a place where your discoverability becomes agnostic to the platform or to the ecosystem with which you are in, right? Currently, if you're not on a particular platform or a black box, I would like to call it black box, not a platform, you end up not, being able to access certain set of customers. If you're not on that black box, you end up missing that set of customers. So how do you ensure that you can get access to a wider network of customers? And that is something which is what ONDC is out to try and sort out. And I think from an overall perspective, because of the current platform way of working, it creates barriers for entry, right? If you're a small entrepreneur and you have a great solution for customer acquisition, right? But you don't have the other pieces of the digital commerce space, which is the supply, which is the seller side, logistics, the fulfillment side, all stitched together, you cannot take your digital commerce forward. So sometimes it acts as a barrier and as a hindrance for you to scale up. Can we look at this model and see how you can participate on digital commerce with what is your specialty and what's your core strength without compromising on the quality of the output? So ONDC is set up on two fundamental concepts, which is unbundling and interoperability. I will explain this to you a little in my next slide. And we spoke about the black box, right? So you have platforms, right? You have two examples of two platforms. For anyone to transact, they have to be within that platform, right? Customers of platform 1 cannot buy from sellers of platform 2, and vice versa. Sellers of platform 2 cannot sell to customers of platform 1. So what it does is it limits your ecosystem. So you can only transact and and have a commercial relationship with those entities which are within that black box, right? Now, what ONDC is trying to do is erase that platform black box, right? And you break up that component. So if you look at digital commerce, you have essentially 3 boxes, right? You have demand generation, which is the customer side. You have sellers, which is the supply side. You have logistics, which is the fulfillment. So you need someone to buy your goods, you need someone to sell the goods, and you need someone to go and deliver those goods. Now, if you break up those and say that, look, my core is customer acquisition, and I will only do customer acquisition and I will not do the other stuff, okay? Can someone else do that for me? And that is what ONDC is trying to do. So if you think about a network, right? The most common network which most of us would very easily relate to is an e-commerce, is an email network, right? So if you look at towards on the left side, irrespective of what your email platform is, right? Whichever your email client is, whether it's a private client, it's an official client, you can send and receive emails from anyone, anywhere in the world, right? It has no restriction. You don't have to be on Gmail in order to receive a Gmail email, right? You can be on Gmail and yet receive email from Yahoo or receive an email from ONDC, right? What is the core is the SMTP protocol, which allows free transfer and exchange of information on the email platform, right? What ONDC is trying to do is trying to build the SMTP equivalent for digital commerce, right? So what you do is you build a digital commerce network where once you plug into the network, and you can plug in on the customer side, which is the buyer side, build the demand generation side. You can plug in on the seller side. You can plug in from the logistics side. Once you're plugged into the network, you're connected to the entire network, and you can transact with any and everyone who's on that network. Okay? So it's not like a one-on-one connection. If I am a seller node, I have to connect with each and every buyer node. No, you connect onto the network, and that's it. Every single buyer node on the other side will be able to see you, right? So that's a very powerful thing. What we are trying to do is that you're removing the limitation of buyer and seller having to be within the platform black box to be able to transact, okay? A little more detail of what it is. So you have buyer applications, which will plug into the ONDC network. Buyer applications' job is only to bring sellers, to bring buyers on board. You have buyer applications currently like Paytm. We have PhonePe who are integrating. We have IDFC Bank, Kotak Mahindra Bank, and several financial institutions who are joining as a buyer app. We have telecom companies like Airtel and all who are actively looking at joining as buyer apps. Okay? So their job is they already have buyers, right? So they are plugging in their buyer ecosystem, their customers into the network. What it does is, think about it, one of the biggest costs for e-commerce is customer acquisition cost, right? Now what you're doing is the buyer applications, because they have captive audiences, they plug in their customer base into the network. Anyone who joins on the seller side will be able to see those customers on the buyer nodes, okay? So you're creating that interconnected way in which the buyer, and as a buyer, just think about it from how the UPI works, right? I may like a Gmail interface, and someone may like a PhonePe interface, and someone may like the Paytm interface. But the base is UPI, which allows a transaction and for you to transfer money from your account into another person's account, right? That's the base. So think about it in the same way. ONDC is the e-commerce equivalent of what UPI is, okay? What it will allow is, irrespective of you as a buyer, whichever buyer funnel or buyer node you connect onto the network, you will be able to see each and every seller on the other side, irrespective of which platform, node, etc. they are on, as long as those nodes are connected onto the ONDC network. Similarly, you'll have logistic providers who will be connected onto ONDC network providing logistic services. So you could be a seller and say, hey, I want to sell, but I don't have back-end logistic agreements with a logistic partner. I don't have logistics tied in. How do I do digital commerce? No problem. You just come in, bring your sellers, and plug into the ONDC network, and use services of logistics service providers who are providing logistics services on the network. Okay? So in this transaction, while you as a seller are a seller for the buyer, but as far as the logistic transaction goes, you become the buyer for the logistic services. Similar, there could be multiple services which could be built onto the ONDC network. Now the magic over here is that if you think about platform, right, what it does is that if you are on a particular platform and as a seller you want to leave that platform, you leave your reputation ledger behind, right? Your ratings, reviews, everything get left behind. As a result, it acts as a bit of a hindrance. What ONDC is going to do is there'll be certain central functions which will be on the network. Reputation will be on the network. A seller, irrespective of which seller node they connect onto the ONDC network, have a one-time registry which will happen on the network. Once you're registered as a seller, it doesn't matter whether you are a directly integrated seller onto the ONDC network or whether you go through another aggregating seller app and connect onto the network. You'll have it like an Aadhaar card. That's like your unique ID. And that reputation ledger, that ID stays with you on the network. Your reputation, your reviews, ratings, everything gets tagged to that ID. You are with a particular aggregating platform, you don't like the commercial terms, no problem. Go to another platform which is giving you better commercial terms, you carry your reputation. So the hindrance for you to move because you have left your reputation goes away, right? So there'll be certain other services which will be built. reviews and rating, issue grievance management, payments, settlements, etc. This is a fairly complex concept, and I'm kind of trying to crunch it in 15 minutes. Please catch me after this in case you feel I've kind of not been able to articulate certain things properly. But this is what essentially the network is. So you'll have multiple buyer nodes, which is going to bring customers. You'll have multiple seller nodes, which will bring sellers, categories, etc. So as a buyer node, your buyers can have access to every single seller category and seller available on the network, potentially. Or as a buyer node, you could decide that, hey, I sell food. I don't want to sell shoes along with food on my platform. So you can choose the categories you do. But there is certain underlying principles of ONDC, and those are certain policy governance modules which we've built. Anyone who joins the ONDC network signs a contract and agrees to the broad policy framework. These are very simple ones. You have an L1, which is all about the law of the land, right? If you're a food seller, you need to have an FSSAI license. Without that, you can't sell. So this is the law of the land. L2s are basically network governance modules, which are meant to enshrine the core value with which ONDC has been set up to democratize digital commerce. So those are values which ensure that there's no cartelization happening within the network, and whatever logic algorithms you're building are democratically applied to every single search which happens on you for a particular category. So what are the benefits, right? So there are benefits for the buyer, because as a buyer, from one access point, you can shop for multiple domains. You have multiple domain sellers. Within a domain, you have multiple access. You have access to multiple sellers coming through various seller funnels. Okay. You have a wide options of price delivery, because at scale, what we assume is that ONDC will enable a buyer to literally cherry pick. So they can choose a product, they can then build their own cart for a price, so they can choose what is the delivery they want, who they want the delivery to be done by, what is the price they want to pay. I want immediate delivery, I'm willing to pay a little extra. I want the cheapest delivery, I don't care about how much time it takes. You can build your own cart, but that's at scale eventually. Right now, delivery and logistics are plugged into seller nodes. Okay. Similarly, for sellers, you don't have to be on multiple platforms. You don't have to manage multiple operational challenges. You just have to be plugged into the ONDC network at one space, and you are able to access the entire network without having to go to multiple platforms. It increases your profitability. You can set your terms and conditions. You can decide which transactions you want to participate. Buyer apps who will bring customers will monetize their captive buyers by charging a buyer finder fee for transactions which happen from them. Seller apps will charge their seller commissions for generating orders for the sellers and getting the entire fulfillment done. Commercial terms are determined by the network participants. ONDC plays no role in defining what those commercial terms are. As a tech service provider, you can build technology pieces to help a buyer or a seller app to come on board. You can build cataloging solutions. You could build payment solutions. You could build issue grievance management solutions. You could build solutions where you can provide data analytics services to people on the network. So there is a play for technology service providers too. It will happen for multiple domains. And I mean, this is just an example of how an ONDC transaction at scale can work. A person wants to go to Kerala. He wants to buy multiple products. Currently, would need to go to multiple platforms to buy. Now on ONDC, because all those nodes seller nodes are plugged into one place, you can just build your one cart checkout and do a checkout with them. Okay? This is a completely government-backed initiative. Just like UPI, this is 100% backed by the government. We are a Section 8 company, so we've been set up as a not-for-profit organization. So profit is not our motive. Our motive is to set up the governance module for digital commerce on this open network and create the guardrails, and then that's about it. And then we are there to evangelize the concept and get more and more people to participate. These are some of our investors who invested into ONDC. We are live in 85 plus cities. We have beta launches. We have beta in Bangalore. And in January, we plan to go full live in Bangalore across F&B and grocery as a category. These are some of our partners who are already working with us on the seller side, on the buyer side, on the logistics side. And these are partners who are either already integrated or are already in advanced stages of integration. You can find out more information on our website. So if you scan that QR code, it will take you to our website, and you can get a whole set of documents which are available. You can have a look at those documents, check out a list of all our network partners, figure out which network partner you may want to work with, or whether you want to come on directly as a network partner. That's my 15 minutes. Thank you very much.